There's a saying that goes, if you want to change the world, you have to start at home. It's exactly what's happening in Greater Lansing. In fact, this grassroots effort has grown and blossomed over the last 8 years. And now there's an opportunity, a big opportunity for others to step up and help. Today, we're going to talk about how and how you can spread it forward. Expert Connection starts now. Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm your host, Julie Holton. You know, on the show, when we talk about building community, we're usually talking about an entrepreneurial ecosystem or a startup community. Today, we're going to take a slightly different approach because it all starts with building community, and that begins with those most in need. Today, we're talking about building community. I'm joined by Jerry Norris from the Fledge. Hey, Jerry, good to see you.
It's great to see you too. I'm excited to talk to you today.
I'm a huge fan of the Fledge, Jerry, and everything that you have going on. For those who are not as familiar, let's start back at the beginning and tell everyone, what is the Fledge all about?
Oh, I got to go all the way back to the beginning. So I was
Maybe
born
like
in
somewhere towards the
1966.
beginning.
Oh, okay. Well, we're 8 years old. We've been in Lansing for 5 years. We started out in Grand Ledge. Our focus is basically to help people become more prosperous through entrepreneurialism or acquiring skills. But we also want to help people who are in disadvantaged communities, which often mean that they live below the ALICE threshold. Basically, they can't afford their basic needs, or people will call them the working poor or living check to check. And so what we found that we had to do was not just teach entrepreneurialism, but to be able to help people get extra food or help with housing, or maybe watch their kids while they're working on a pitch competition. And so we started the Fledge Foundation to help with basic needs, as the Fledge itself helps with prosperity and education and skill development.
Jerry, can you talk to us a little bit about the ALICE threshold for those who are not familiar? Because it makes so much sense to look at this from human to human and to see what are the holistic needs that someone has. You can't just focus on one area and think that the other areas of their lives are going to improve. So, but first, can you talk about what is the ALICE threshold?
Yeah, so we'll start out with ALICE as an acronym, and it stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. And what the United Way did a study all around the country about how much it costs to have housing in Lansing, for example, how much it costs to feed your family, how much it costs to have transportation and all of that. So there's 6 categories that they predominantly use. There's 2 that are taxes and miscellaneous. I'll put those to the side for a second. The 6 main categories are housing, food, healthcare, childcare, transportation, and technology. And if I use an example of, let's say, 2 adults, a toddler, and an infant, that ALICE threshold for them is they have to make $6,000 a month to pay for all of that. Their biggest expense will be childcare, followed by healthcare, and then followed by housing, and then healthcare, food, and things like that. So what ends up happening is, if those 2 adults do not make about $24 an hour, then they're going to have to sacrifice a basic need. And almost always the first basic need is healthcare. Even if they're on Medicaid or Medicare, it often doesn't cover certain things, so they just skip going to the doctor, and eventually may end up in the emergency room getting something dealt with that they didn't want to pay for, or pay a copay or whatever. The second thing they do is they skip childcare if they have kids. And what that ends up looking like is either a latchkey kid, not in my example, which is an infant and a toddler, or they're being dropped off to grandma or to auntie or to a neighbor's house or whatever. So childcare becomes unstable. And this one, I think, is a very critical one for us to think about, because if you think about a child as they're developing, like use a psychologist like Erickson, in between the ages of 0 and 2, they are forming trust and forming hope. So if there's a lot of stress in the family, and it's something called adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, if there's a lot of stress in the family in those ages, it's going to affect them 15, 20, 30 years from now in their ability to trust people and in their ability to form an optimistic view of the world. So let's kind of boil that down to Lansing a little bit. 60 some percent, and it changes quite quickly, but about 60% of people in Lansing live below the ALICE threshold. So we are basically surrounded by people who are sacrificing a basic need every single day. And what we want to do is try to do something about that. And we kind of take a two-tiered approach to that. The first one is, can we reduce the burden of these different basic needs costs by either providing food, teaching people how to grow their own food, or helping to create a child care collective that can help to reduce the cost of childcare. 70% of childcare in Lansing is unlicensed. So people are basically winging it with childcare, and we're trying to build a childcare collective that helps with licensing, helps with getting subsidies from the federal government for the childcare. And so if we can reduce that burden, so if it's not 6,000, we can make it 5,000, then we've got a bigger probability of crossing over that ALICE threshold. And that's where the prosperity part comes in. If we can help them form a business or do a side hustle or get a skill set that allows them to get more money at their job, then we've got a greater probability of getting above the ALICE threshold. And I always ask people to imagine what conversations we would be having or what we would be doing in our community if everybody had their basic needs covered. Imagine what we'd be talking about. It would be innovation. It would be, everybody would know about Chat GPT. Everybody would be working with something with virtual reality and AI. And instead of us being looked at sometimes in a negative way as a very affordable city, I kind of hear that. When I hear that, I think, come here, corporations, because our workers are exploitable. But I'd like to change that narrative and think that, come to Lansing because we are problem solvers, we are innovative, we are entrepreneurial. Don't come here to make us, just bang a hammer on the side of a car. Come here and we'll teach you how to not need that hammer and how to automate it and how to do, more innovative and creative and competitive things for you. And that's the narrative I'd like to have.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd much rather be talking about other numbers or other innovations than talking about 60%, more than half of our population having to forego basic needs just to make ends meet. I mean, and Jerry, it's an uncomfortable conversation, but a difficult one that's so important to have. And you have this all the time in order to make a difference. So talk to me about what the Fledge Foundation is doing, because you have some really interesting examples. You recently were a warming center, and you've got some great examples of how you were able to take that experience and connect with people in a way to get them to start trusting and using the services to start moving forward in their lives. So talk to us about what you're doing at the Fledge.
Well, if I continue on that example that you just gave, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had the polar vortex where the temperatures got as low as 15 below zero. And when that happened in December, we lost 2 community members and a dog, by the way. So one died of exposure, one died of carbon monoxide poisoning, and the dog was in the car and died of carbon monoxide poisoning as well. And so when the city went to code blue again, we were about a day ahead of them. And we opened up the Fledge as a 24-hour warming center for about 8 days. And during that time, we were able to serve 42 different unhoused people. They came to us instead of the other shelters, either because they got there too late, or they've been banned, or they're not comfortable in the shelter because there's a lot of fights that can happen in them. There's a lot of stress, and sometimes you got to sleep in a chair. But we were trying to be more dignity based. And it was less about you're coming to this warming shelter and more about you're coming to the Fledge and you're going to happen to get warm, but we're going to have a lot of food for you. We're going to let you participate in things. If you know how to, engineer and you want to go work in the music studio, you're going to go down there. If you want to learn how to do that, go down there with that person and learn how to do it. So, though it was stressful and it was tense, and I don't know, I probably had 3 people who either physically or verbally assaulted me in a kind of rough way. At the same time, I'm getting in their shoes and thinking, if I'm freezing to death and I'm frustrated and I don't know how to get out of this, I'm going to be a little stressed. So we have a lot of empathy for that. We have a lot of understanding for that. And at the end of the day, all 3 of those people, when they left, they said something like, "Goodbye, kitty," and fell in love with our cats while they were here. But so that's kind of the work that the foundation does. And then the Fledge is there to kind of scoop them up a little bit and say, "Hey, I know you're leaving today, and when you come back tomorrow, we'll still be a warming center. But if you want to work in the studio, or you want to talk about a business idea, or you want to learn a skill set, do your own podcast, whatever it might be, come back for that. You are such more than what is described as your basic need that you're missing." So some people, we call them unhoused. Well, they're missing that basic need. They're so much more than unhoused. They're so much more than food insecure. They're so much more than mentally or physically ill. They're a human being that was born with dreams, and that's what we want. We want to get them back there.
And life is complex. And so oftentimes these are complex issues that we're dealing with, but it starts with just wanting to offer that love and support. I love how you put it too, that you're just humans helping humans, that's what it's all about. And people like you and I believe that at our core, we all have a responsibility to help our fellow humans. It's what living in community is all about. Building community is all about. Jerry, you have a campaign going on right now for the Fledge Foundation, and it's a pretty important one, and one where the community can help support the work you're doing. Tell me about this campaign.
Yeah, so it's a platform called Patronicity, and the Michigan Economic Development Corp, or the MEDC, uses this platform to help organizations like the Fledge Foundation raise money. And when we hit our goal, they will come in and match that. So our goal is $50,000. When we hit that goal, which we're $13,000 away from, we will get a match from the MEDC. So we'll actually raise $100,000. So if somebody donates $10 right now, it's really donating $20. And what we're going to do, the results of what we will do is we will be able to help thousands of more people, and we help tens of thousands of people right now. We're going to be able to help thousands more, and that's going to be realized by activating more space here. So about 3,000 square feet more. We're going to put a high-tech STEM room into the space that's activated. We're going to license our kitchen. We're going to upgrade our electrical so that we can decarbonize the building. And I'll just take a pause for that. That means going to all electrical, because if we go to all electricity, we'll be able to use solar panels and we'll get off the grid, and we will have an impact on climate change. So there's a lot of good that we're going to be able to do with this, and we really need the community support to get us over that finish line. We've got to raise at least $1,000 a day for the next 13 days. And when we do that, then you're going to see a lot of construction to start happening, and we're very excited about it.
There's your call to action, $1,000 a day for the next 13 days. Jerry, we can do this. We can support you. Let's get our community rolling here. They've already been so supportive, our members of the community, helping. I can't believe how much you've raised, even in the last week that I've talked to you. You are somehow a magician pulling all of this together. And it wasn't lost on me as you were talking about what some of these enhancements and improvements are going to be, that even while doing good, you're doing more good. You're supporting the efforts to fight climate change. And it's that to me is one of the things that's so incredible about you and those who support you at the Fledge, because I know this is not a one-man show. Even though you are the man behind the curtain pulling all the strings, you have so many people there. Your wife, Shannon, who supports you, who supports her work. Just incredible people doing incredible things at the Fledge. Jerry, how do people get involved? How can they support your efforts?
Well, go to patronicity.com/the Fledge and donate there if you can. Share it, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever, and just share our posts and donate if you can, and help us get to that $50,000 mark. You said something really that touches my heart very much, is that I often say to people, everything I've ever done has been through or with other people. We don't do things alone in this world. We need each other. That's why community, as you said in the beginning, is so, so very important. So where we're at right now, it's because Lansing raised me. Lansing takes care of me, and I want to be in that web of life and take care of it back.
Yeah, you are giving back, I would say 10,000-fold to Lansing. We're so lucky to have you here leading the Fledge, leading the efforts at the Fledge Foundation. We will link to your campaign in the comments down below, and make sure, Jerry, I know a lot of people watching may not be able to support with a financial donation. You can support for free by clicking subscribe, sharing this across all of the social media platforms. Head right now to the Fledge on Facebook, Instagram, all the things, all the platforms. Follow them on YouTube. Jerry is pretty much everywhere, showing support, spreading the word for this community. And Jerry, I really wish you the best. I can't wait to see MEDC match this grant, this $50,000 grant. I have no doubt it's going to happen, and we will certainly do our part to spread the word and make sure people know about the great work happening at the Fledge. Thanks for joining us today on the show, Jerry.
Thank you so much. I know that your show is going to put us over the top, so it's
we'll get working on it.
Very much appreciated.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.